Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Lambe School. I thought that was a fitting location for a different kind of magic, a magic that has an academic twist. And why not in a school building founded in 1594? When I think about education, having been here on this site since 1594, what are the sorts of things that I would want somebody to know? Foundations for a good life and to think about bigger problems in society. Well, I think I would probably start with philosophy. If we go back to the ancient thinkers and think about the foundations that they tried to lay in our system of ideas, then that would be a good starting point. So let's begin. As an educator, I had to find a core text, and I found here a collection of the world's greatest philosophers. So this is a nice little sort of crib sheet, if you will, about all the big ideas that influence us even today. So if you, for example, we have a philosopher listed on this side as Karl Popper, the father of positivism, with big ideas and the dates that he lived. And here we have Hugo Grotius. For those of you who study international law, you might know something about Mr. Grotius. Auguste Comte, and others, Socrates, etc. Now these philosophers and their ideas have transcended time. They're very important to us, and even decisions that we make today about how to govern our societies are influenced by the ideas contained here. Would you like to help me? You don't have to come up. You can just sit right where you are. Would that be okay? What is your name?
Steffi.
Steffi. All right, Steffi. I'll flick through the book. I want you to stop me at any point.
Stop.
There, great. Hold the page open. I want you to absorb all the information on that page. There'll be a quiz in 32 seconds of all that content. No, I'm joking. So you have a philosopher in mind. You're looking at a philosopher. And there's some ideas, some life dates, and a photograph, etc. Look at those pages and just concentrate on the information you see in front of you. Is that okay, Steffi? Wonderful. Now concentrate and imagine, if you could, sending the thoughts that you now have in your mind to my mind. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but it would be fun. Oh, that's excellent. Does wax mean something to you, Steffi? I know that sounds a bit weird, but does wax mean anything to you? No. No, hang on a minute. I'm going to stay with wax. It sounds a little bit untoward, but I think wax is important in this context. Because there was a famous philosopher once who was rolling a ball of wax in his fingers, and he thought to himself, is that wax a solid or is it a liquid? We look at a candle and it's a solid, but when we light it, it becomes a liquid. And he thought, my senses are deceiving me when I look at that candle because I don't know if it's a solid or a liquid. If I look out the window, I see a tree, it's about this big in the forest next to my house. But if I go up to that tree, it's taller than a man. And he thought, my senses must be deceiving me. And if they are, what's the one thing that I should do to figure out where truth lies? And he said to himself, I'm going to adopt a position of what's called hyperbolic doubt. Does that mean something to you, Stephen? It does. Excellent. If I doubt everything, what's the one true thing I could say? And he came up with this remarkable phrase, cogito ergo sum, which roughly translated from the Latin means I think, therefore I am. The mere act of thinking establishes our existence for this particular philosopher. How am I doing? Good? Excellent. You're doing well, because you were sending that to me. Fantastic. Cogito ergo sum. Now, we think, therefore we are also suggests that there's a separation between our minds and our bodies. This is called mind-body dualism, right? Now, this particular philosopher, if I'm correct, I'm going to name him in a moment. He's a Frenchman, 17th century, roughly, late 16th, early 17th century, René Descartes. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Steffi did a fantastic job there. Now, this philosopher, and setting up this duality, if you will, between mind and body, really was one of the founding thinkers for the Enlightenment and modern scientific enterprise. And we believe that we as humans are somehow superior and can control the natural world, a position, unfortunately, which has led to things like the atomic bomb. So we need to be careful when we think about this separation between mind and body. But let us turn to this idea of skepticism and our senses for a moment. Steffi, I have one question for you. Was there something else on the page of René Descartes, perhaps? Something else underneath his picture? Did you see something there? You did. And what was that? Did it look something like this? Ah, thank you very much. One of the things about separation between mind and body, of course, is that some of us believe that you can use the mind to control a physical object. Would you like to have a go?
Yeah.
Okay, come on up here. Excellent. What is your name?
Alejandra.
Alejandra. Wonderful, Alejandra. If you could, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
Right-handed, okay. If you could just hold the bead between your thumb and finger, just like that's wonderful. And put your hand out like that. Alejandra, I want you to imagine your mind speaking through the pendulum. Your mind can tell the pendulum to move. So if I say, have your mind move the pendulum towards your body and away from your body, that's wonderful. And now your mind could actually tell it to stop. Very good. And swing this way, from left to right. Now, some people believe that's a great way to make decisions. You get up in the morning and say, shall I have a cup of coffee? If it swings left to right, I'll have coffee. Shall I have a cup of tea? If it swings between me, I'll have a cup of tea. If it goes around in circles, it's a big maybe. Yeah. So, Alejandra, you might, well, see, there you go. She's hugely indecisive. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Please have a seat. Now, this idea between mind and body, you might think we are non-dual people, that our minds and bodies are actually quite connected. And there's a whole community of philosophers now who think that the duality assumption is problematic. Well, let's get back to skepticism. I have a couple of questions for you, because when we think about the scientific enterprise, we think about things like observation. So, for example, if I asked you, this little sphere made of copper, if I open my thumb and my finger, what will happen? Anyone volunteer, as a group, doesn't matter. What would happen if I open my fingers? It will fall. Thank you very much. What is your name?
Olivia.
Olivia, you were very certain when you said it will fall. Now let me ask you, why do you think it will fall?
Gravity.
Gravity. Most people say because of gravity. What is gravity?
Rather let you explain.
Rather let me explain it. Well, we know it's an attraction of forces, right? So, something with mass, like the Earth, which is pretty big compared to the sphere, has a greater mass than this sphere, and therefore the sphere is attracted to the Earth. That is gravity. We don't see gravity, we see its effects. Olivia, I'm going to ask you another question. With what certainty would you say the ball will fall if I drop it?
With all certainty.
With all certainty. Who's comfortable with that statement, all certainty? I'm going to put a little doubt in your mind. We could have a cataclysmic event in the next few minutes, right? We send stuff up in space. We've got, experimental craft on the surface of Mars, right? Something cosmological, astronomical might happen, which could change the life events here on Earth. And when, at the precise moment I drop the ball, it wouldn't fall. Olivia, how certain are you that the ball will drop?
I'm very certain.
Excellent. Another crisis avoided. Isn't that great? Would you like to join me? Excellent. Please come up here. What is your name?
Anthony.
Anthony. Nice to meet you. Anthony, hold out your left hand and your right hand. Both hands. Fantastic. I'm going to add another ball to our discussion. We now have a copper sphere and a black sphere. Now, we're going to go back to Descartes in a minute, because Descartes just wasn't a philosopher of the Enlightenment. He was also a little bit esoteric. There is a book called Descartes' Secret Notebook, where it is suggested that he was actually a member of the Rosicrucians. Now, the Rosicrucians was a society of men founded in the 17th century. They had a founding document called the Fama Fraternitatis. It was a bit sort of esoteric, talked about correspondences between that which lies above and that which lies below. And they believed that these things were representative, symbolically representative, like this little sphere represents femininity, passivity, and is associated with the left hand. And this black sphere here used to be white, but because it absorbed all the tears of the world's sinners, became black. That's too heavy, isn't it? Jeez. That's a bit frightening, that, isn't it? Anyway, the black sphere, execution, male, forceful, right hand. I don't make this thing up. These guys, that's what they were talking about, right? Not very appropriate for the modern age. But never mind, bear with me, Anthony, okay? I'm going to drop both of these simultaneously. I want you to prepare your hands to receive them on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. What's your first reaction?
To grab them.
Grab them, right? What's your first perception?
The feeling of them touching my hands.
Feeling of them touching your hands. Was there anything unexpected that happened?
Yeah, this one came towards me.
That one came towards you because?
I think I grabbed for it too soon.
Excellent. Okay, now you have an opportunity. Stand just a little bit that way. That towards the audience, that's it, but still sideways. Put your hands behind your back. You may choose to be in alignment or out of alignment, which is to say, if you want to be in alignment, Anthony, you can have the copper sphere in your left hand and the black sphere in your right hand. If you'd like to be out of alignment, because you're a bit like that, I don't know, then you could switch them. I don't mind. But once you've made a decision, and I'll turn my back to give you time to contemplate that, I will close my eyes. These folks here can verify I can see nothing, Anthony. Your hands are behind your back. You can have the copper sphere in your left hand, you can have the black sphere in your right hand, or you can swap them around. When you're ready and you've made your decision, I'm assuming you're a very decisive young man, you bring your hands out in front of you into fists like so, and then I shall turn around. Please let me know when you're ready.
Yep.
You're ready. Good. He's like a tin soldier. He's so nervous. Okay, excellent. Now, Anthony, I gave you a choice to stay in alignment or stay out of alignment. You have chosen to go for the out of alignment. The black ball is here, and the copper ball is here. Open your hands. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So Anthony has sat down, and I think that's fine. You can stay where you are, because there's one final thing I want you to contemplate. I want you to think about what's going on in your life right now. Okay? Just contemplate that a little bit, because there's one other thing about Descartes that's quite interesting, and the Rosicrucians, is they did have icons for their movement, and this is a Rosicrucian cross. And I wonder if you could just focus on that cross and focus on the heart that's in the middle, the rose heart. It is a symbol of life, and the cross predates Christianity. It actually refers to the structure of a human being with their arms outstretched, standing on planet Earth. You're focusing on the rose heart and the symbols that adorn the cross. Yet there's one symbol that draws its attention to you. You're thinking about family-related matters. They're sort of at the forefront of your mind. And if I were a Rosicrucian, and if I were René Descartes, I might say, focus on that cross, on that one symbol that means something to you. It might spring into your mind in your subconscious. There's one symbol that means something to you. It is an upward pointing arrow with 2 slashes in it. It is the sign for Sagittarius. Do you happen to be a Sagittarius?
I am.
Thank you very much. Now, this idea of philosophers and their ideas around us and where they might come from, I often sit up and think, where do ideas come from? Do we have ideas that are uniquely ours, or do we borrow them from someone else? And are we conscious of when we borrow them? Where do those ideas come from? Do they come from inside the mind, or do they come from somewhere else? Is there a global repository of ideas? That would be pretty cool. Carl Jung thought there probably was a global repository of ideas. He called them archetypes, and they were common across all of us, and we would see them in our dreams. But a neuroscientist recently published a book called Aping Mankind, in which he said we're all part of the shared community of human minds. Ooh, what a lovely phrase. And I might just have privileged access to that shared community of human minds. So with that little statement in mind, let us consider something. More philosophers. Training myself in philosophy, I've required at times philosophical flashcards. Not mathematical, but philosophical. So I have a collection of cards. There is Jeremy Bentham. Now on this one, we have no ideas that are written down or dates. These are things that I just need to commit to memory. The great utilitarian, Jeremy Bentham. J.S. Mill, a great influence on me in terms of systematic method of analysis, scientific method and comparison. Hayek, philosopher of the open societies. Aquinas, a great philosopher of human rights even, God as an origin for human rights. David Hume, and I might go through a little quicker, Burke, the great conservative, who thought that the House of Lords was something that the United Kingdom should have forever because it has a regulatory, constraining power over our House of Commons. Sounds funny from an American talking about the House of Commons and the House of Lords, but there you go. We're in England, so we're going to do that. Lakatos, normal science, etc. I have Heidegger, Diogenes, Wittgenstein, Nietzsche, Socrates, Grotius again, Rousseau, Popper, Spinoza, Locke. You get the idea. Tons of philosophers. Now it's your chance to become an armchair philosopher. And we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. I wonder if you could just take one of those. Just one. Thank you. That's good. Don't show me. What's your name?
Emily?
Emily. Excellent, Emily. Steffi helped already. Perhaps you could take one. What's your name?
Luis.
Luis. And just back here, if you could take one, that'd be great. What's your name?
Pim.
Pim. Luis, Pim, and Emily. Wonderful. You each have a philosopher. I'd like you to look at your philosopher now and don't show me. That would be fantastic. And we will further shroud them in mystery with a double-blind test, if you will. Emily, if you could put your philosopher in that envelope. Luis, if you could put yours in that envelope. And Pim, if you could put yours in that envelope. That'd be great. You may seal your envelopes, shroud them in mystery, and hide them from prying eyes. Excellent. Emily, you finished? Great. Wonderful. Luis, are you done? Thank you very much. And Pim, are you finished? Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, now I need someone exceedingly trustworthy. Olivia, you're looking pretty trustworthy. Who's your friend here?
Jane.
Jane. Hello, Jane.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Jane. Are you incredibly trustworthy?
I would say.
You would say so, yes. You wouldn't deny that, would you? Could you just hold on to those for me, please? That's fantastic. If we did have a shared community of human minds, then it might go something like this. Emily, I'd like you to concentrate on your philosopher. All right? That's great. That's a bit odd. Oh, yes. Commit myself in writing in advance here. Shapes came to my mind for some reason. I don't know what was going on there. Could I have number 1, please? Jane. Great. Thank you ever so much. Okay. Let's tear this open and see to confirm. I've written something down there, but I want to see if we confirm. Ah, yes. Plato. Is that right?
Yes.
Plato. Fantastic. I was getting sort of weird images of objects or shapes, and it could have been the Platonic solids. But then again, you think I might be justifying that after the fact. But if I turn that around, you see I've actually written Plato. Thank you. Now, Luis, you have someone in mind. Don't give anything away. That's excellent. Okay, wonderful. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes the letters flow in the wrong order. So I kind of have to make sense of it, just like playing Scrabble. They come kind of mixed. No, that's not going to work. I'll try. Ah, yes. That's even better. Okay. Number 2, please. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. See, Luis, how we're doing here. He's thinking of someone, and you are thinking, ah, yes, of Popper. Is that right?
Yes.
Popper. Ladies and gentlemen, Popper. Now, Pim, since you're sitting back there, I won't bring you up, actually. I'm just going to, okay, very interesting. I'm going to write a concept down here, just at the bottom. It's very important the way we govern ourselves today, I think. It's quite an interesting exchange that takes place in modern societies. Yes, okay. I think I've got that one. Number 3, please. Fantastic. And the final one, just, I think I've got that one. Number 3, please. Fantastic. And the final one, just to be sure, okay, just to verify, and that was Rousseau. Is that right? The French philosopher of the social contract. You know this idea about we sacrifice a little bit of liberty for the protection of the state. Yes? Wonderful. Rousseau and the social contract, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, wasn't that a bit of fun? But a little bit heavy, I'd say. It was a little bit of, going through the big ideas, that shared community of human minds. And I thought I might lighten the mood a little bit and tell you a little bit of a story, because I like history, and I've been doing a bit of research since I've been here. Google is your friend. Wikipedia is not. Right? And Britain has this fantastic history. And I came across a story of a woman in London who came from the north originally with but a few shillings to her name. And her name was Lola Maguire. If you want to research Lola, you can, because she has a very interesting history. Lola was a showgirl. Sounds a bit like a Copacabana, doesn't it? Suddenly I have visions. Yeah, her name was Lola, but it really was Lola Maguire. And Lola was not only a showgirl, but she was also a shrewd businesswoman. And she found herself in London in the Hippodrome, which is near Leicester Square in central London or the West End. And not only was she a showgirl in the casino, but the owners thought, it's fantastic, she's actually quite a shrewd businesswoman and everyone likes her. So she became a dealer at the high stakes poker table. So Lola, of course, learned who the gamblers were, welcomed them, ran the club, made the money. Oh, and she was rather adept at keeping very detailed records of all the comings and goings of the gamblers, that which they owed to the club, that which they won. This book, in and of itself, became a source of power for her. I should return to that momentarily. Now, this particular table that she was in charge of played a game called five-card stud poker. Now, the rules of poker are many, and five-card stud is one of the more difficult games to win because you get 5 cards, you don't get any cards face up, there's no flop like in Texas Hold'em, and there are no exchanges of cards. You get the cards you are dealt, you play the cards you are dealt, and the skill of the poker player is in the ability to bluff, to outbet his or her opponents. And one such skillful player who used to come often to Lola's casino was a gentleman by the name of Pierre Lamont. Now, most people didn't know him by that name. They knew him by a different name called Le Batelier, which is French for the magician or the trickster. Now, he was famous for playing tricks on people, arriving fashionably late for the games and changing the stakes of the games sort of midway through. So, on one fateful night, 4 players assembled themselves at the poker table. Typical Victorian gentleman, turn of the century London, in the Hippodrome. Player 1 positioned himself at the table. Player 2 positioned himself at the table. Number 3 and number 4. In addition, Pierre Lamont made up the 5th. So there were 5 players at the table and quite a few spectators, I can tell you. And they assembled for the game. He was, of course, fashionably late. The ante for the game was 70 shillings. Le Batelier arrives and says, I'm ready to play. And Lola says, would you like to choose the deck? And he said, Lola, he says, you know I like that special deck. Right you are, she says. And reaches into the bottom compartment of the dealer's box and removes what they used to call the exquisite deck of cards. So, with the players assembled and Le Batelier fashionably late, the exquisite cards were prepared and removed from the box. Lola, of course, adept as she was, spread the cards on the table to show that we had a complete deck to play the game. With a quick flourish and a dealer's cut, the deck was ready for play. Lola said, is everyone in? 70 shillings, the ante is on the table. The players agreed and were ready to play. the first card was dealt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. The second card was dealt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. The third card was dealt. The fourth. And finally the fifth card to make up the 5-card hand. But when they got to the fourth player, Labatilleur said, wait just a moment. I want someone from the audience to choose the last card. Could I ask you just to take a small packet, maybe cut half the cards off the top? Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. The cards were placed and marked. Perfect. The scene was set, but Labatilleur didn't stop there. I want to raise the stakes even more. We need to raise our bet even higher. There's only 70 shillings in the pot at the moment. We need to go above that ante. We need a bigger bet. So, I wonder, Luis, if you could write a 2-digit number greater than 70 just at the top there. That'd be fantastic. Just at the top, yeah, a little bit higher. Great. Wonderful. Doesn't matter if I see, it's okay. And Steffi, if you could write another 2-digit number below the one that Luis has written, greater than 70. The bet is being assembled. He's going to crowdsource the bet. Alejandra. This was, of course, before social media. Wonderful. And perhaps Anthony, a fourth one. Great. And is there somebody who's an accountant in the house? Somebody who might be able to add these up for us? Too much pressure. Yes? I wonder if you might help me. Could you total those up, please? That'd be fantastic. Now, the bet is assembled. A crowdsourced set of numbers are being tallied as we speak. A card has been chosen by someone in the audience. And Labatilleur raises the stakes even higher. He says, I need to do one more thing. I need some collateral. Is there a young lady in the audience who would like to sacrifice her ring for the purposes of this demonstration? Is there someone with a ring, small ring, something, not with a giant stone or anything like that? That'd be great. Thank you. What's your name, madam? Pavlenka. Wonderful, Pavlenka. Worry not. Your ring is entirely safe, said Labatilleur. So, if you could just, actually, I'd like someone else. Olivia, could you just hold on to that, please? That would be fantastic. Okay, just hold the ring. Don't drop it, because Pavlenka will have a go. Now, Labatilleur took two things out of his pockets. He took a bag, which had some heavy object in it, and a small wallet, which were placed on the table. There's a lot going on here. Do we have a final tally? Don't tell us just yet, okay? Hold that thought. Let's see what the hands reveal. So the first hand comprises a 6, a 7, a 3, a 5, and a queen. This would be a meaningless and pointless hand. Nothing there for 5-card stud poker. We have a 7, a 2, a 9, a 10, and a 2. A pair of 2s. If I were playing 5-card stud, I might bet on a pair of 2s, because the odds of getting a pair is pretty low. The next hand, 5, 9, 7, 5, and 6. A pair of 5s. A pair of 5s beats a pair of 2. And a 6, a 3, a 4, a 2, and a queen. Not particularly exciting. Now, the big drama. If we had a drum, we would be rolling the drum now, because there's a final hand on the table. It's the table of Pierre Lamont. And before he turns his cards over, he says, Olivia, the count of 3, I want you to let go of that ring. I'm going to take the handkerchief. 1, 2, and 3. And the ring vanished completely from her hands. The audience, watching the poker game, applauded rapturously. Thank you. But what was revealed? How much was on the table just by chance? How much was that total bet?
312.
312. So there's a lot of shillings on the table. Fantastic. What hand does he have? Well, let us see. He's got the 10 of hearts. He's got the Jack of hearts. He's got the King of hearts. And he's got the Ace of hearts. That's looking pretty good. But we're one card short. Hannah chose the final card, marked throughout the game. What does he need for a royal straight flush? The Queen of Hearts. Much. Well, that was terribly exciting, but there was still more to reveal, because he won for sure with a royal straight flush. It beats 2 5s, 2 5s beat 2 twos. So he was the winner of the game. But then, what happened? The bag was opened. Poker chips were removed. We have 100 shillings. 200 shillings. 300 shillings. You can see where this is going. He was a very clever man. 5 shillings. 5 more shillings. I make that 310 so far. And finally, the final shilling to make 311. Came up a bit shy, didn't he? What was the total? 312. Oh dear. Never fear. Labatteur could always organize himself and pull himself out of a scrape. Because we have a wallet, ladies and gentlemen, and inside this wallet there happens to be a poker chip. And inside of that wallet is a ring. A gold or white gold ring or silver ring next to the final poker chip. Not only do we have 312, but Pavlenka, the Labatteur, can return the ring that Olivia made disappear. Thank you very much. So we may think that our story ends there, but actually if you do your research on Lola, in 1914, things started to happen. Not just World War I, but within the casino, there was a problem. This book was becoming a liability. She had records on the elite of London, the gamblers of London. There was a problem. She knew all their private details. And apparently there was a move to come after her. Resentment was building among the people who owed money. And there was a bit of worry of the people that had won a lot of money as well, because this was still an unsavory activity for the delights of Victorian society. So Lola took the decision to take her last shillings and her exquisite deck of cards and secrete herself into the basement of the London Hippodrome underground casino. Now they say she vanished and was never seen again. Fleeting sighting perhaps in the 1950s, but other than that, no one saw her. And to this day, no one quite knows what happened to her. Now, in my research, I'm going to come up with a proposition. And the proposition is as follows. Pierre Lamont was a regular player at the casino and was a friend of Lola. And it could be that he and Lola had a discussion about what was happening and the resentments that were building against her. And perhaps he decided he would get his network of friends together and save her. So for our final experiment, if you will, about this particular, testing this particular proposition, I need 2 volunteers. So I wonder if someone from the back could come up. That would be great. You, sir, you want to join me up here? That'd be great. What's your name?
Moritz.
Moritz? Yes. All right, come on up here. And this lets me off the hook. Moritz, could you choose someone else? Excellent.
Somebody I know or somebody I don't?
That doesn't matter. In fact, it's better that you know her. Okay? Great. And what is your name?
Chianti.
Pardon me?
Chianti.
Chianti. Chianti. Not Chianti like the wine. No, Chianti. Okay, great.
Chianti.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's okay. Do you have a, that's fine. So, you guys know each other.
Yes.
You have a connection in your minds, yes? And in your hearts. A little bit. He'd like that. No. Okay. So, I wonder if you'd like to go first, or would you like to go first? Which one of you is sort of in this friendship is the dominant one?
Ladies first.
Very nice. He's a perfect gentleman. Would you like to go first? Okay. Now, imagine that this book is made up of Lola's foes, and this is, of course, Lola's friend. So we have foe and friend. Okay? Now, you're going to go first. You're going to be on the foe side of this equation. Right? All these people here could be friends, they could be foes. These are the folks that came to the casino and gambled. Also accumulated debts, but also high winnings. Now, the experiment here is you're going to look at the photograph very, very briefly, and you're going to make woman's instinct decision, that gut instinct, you're going to say whether they're a foe or a friend. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right, I'm just going to show you a picture. You're going to say foe or friend, the first thing that pops in your mind. Now, normally when I do this test, there's a sort of 30% rejection rate, right? Which means about 30% of these pictures are going to be what you think is a friend. Does that make sense? Okay, here we go. Foe or friend?
Friend.
Friend. Very nice.
Foe.
Flip them around so you can see it.
Foe.
Foe. Excellent. And this person, sorry.
Foe.
Foe. Okay, great.
Friend.
Friend. All right. Put him in the middle. And these two guys.
Foe.
Foe. She's harsh.
Friend.
Friend. Great.
Foe.
A foe. Okay.
Friend.
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 A friend.
Friend.
Okay. I think she did exceedingly well. Now we're going to change the equation around. Friend or foe. She was doing foe and friend. You're doing friend or foe. Right? So, if you see one, you say friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And it goes here. If it's a foe, it goes there. Does that make sense?
Makes
Great.
sense.
First one.
Friend. Foe. Friend. Friend. Foe. Friend. Friend. Foe. Friend. Foe. Foe. Friend.
Excellent. What was governing your choices? I'm very curious when people do that very quick elimination of a human being. It's a bit harsh, isn't it? Yeah. I wouldn't want you guys to be like Justice of the Peace or head of the magistrates' courts here or something like that. But what were you thinking when you saw, was it the eyes, was it the hair? I mean, we've got quite an interesting mix of people here. Now, look at this. And all sorts of different things. What was it that made you go, whoa, that's a friend or a foe?
Comfortable and friendly looking people.
Great.
Friends.
So you went for the friendly face or the sort of,
Yeah.
okay. And was there any kind of distinguishing feature that you were judging on?
People with beards were foes.
People with beards are foes. So this is an anti-hipster guy. Anyone with a beard's not acceptable. Fine, no problem. Now, the theory that I have, and the final thing I want to share with you, is that actually Pierre Lamont was also part of a secret society, or a secret-ish society, and the handbook is included here. They're known as the Oddfellows, and this is a book from the 1870s on how to organize an Oddfellow lodge. It turns out that this particular region of London is near Hatton Garden. And in Hatton Garden, there are jewelry dealers, diamond dealers, etc., that form a very close network and come and gamble at the club. And they set up one of these Oddfellow guilds, if you will, a club, a lodge in London. And my proposition is that this guild protected young Lola. They came together as a club of like-minded individuals and protected her. Now, the interesting thing is, how do we know if they're a member? Well, it turns out they had a secret symbol, the all-seeing eye. Pierre Lamont has an all-seeing eye on the back of his photograph. Interestingly, you rejected some people that have no all-seeing eye and some that do have the all-seeing eye. So there's a fairly even mix here in the center. But what's even more interesting is that among the foes, every photograph that you chose, no mark of the all-seeing eye whatsoever. And if I look at the back of every one of these photographs, there is no all-seeing eye symbol whatsoever. Every single one you chose correctly is a foe. Even more amazingly, every one that you chose was a friend. The all-seeing eye, an all-seeing eye, all-seeing eye. Now they're two together here. If I take them apart, they're all part of the Oddfellows. And you correctly identified the friends of Lola Maguire. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, if my proposition is correct, and all these friends have been correctly identified, then that might explain the fact that Lola, unknown to everyone else, actually vanished from sight And she is no longer here. And her exquisite deck of cards, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, disappeared with her. Thank you very much. Now, this whole thing about history and the power of history really excites me. And in addition to the research I do on other people, I did some research on myself. You can get onto these ancestry websites and do all kinds of neat things. And I found out that my extended family actually came from Austria, and my maternal long-term name is Van Bergen van de Grip, which sounds very exciting. And we have this lovely Latin phrase that describes our family, which is means no bird soars higher. It's a lovely little phrase. A bit pretentious, but I'll take it. Right? And my family always said, well, we were blue blood. And my dad always said, it was a bit light blue. So I was doing a bit of research and going through my family heirlooms, and I found a collection of things that I want to share with you. These were handed down from my paternal grandfather from the Netherlands. So the family moved across from Austria into the Netherlands. He grew up in the late Victorian period, and then through the 20th century. And he was an architect. The public buildings were designed by him. If you go to the city of Boskoven in the Netherlands, you'll find that he designed the town hall there. And there are a number of objects that came into my possession, which included his photograph. We called him Opa Landman. And I'm proud to say that my father's over here. No, there he is. And there they are. Generations. And Opa Landman was, in this picture, the 1st Regiment Artillery of 1915 and 1917. So he was getting ready for, or part of, World War I regiment. Now, more importantly, is he also supplied a letter to my father when these were handed down, these items, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. And there's some really interesting descriptions in this letter, which we'll return to in a moment. Now, what are the objects? Well, the objects included a miniature book and a Morgan silver dollar, because my grandfather liked the United States and traveled a lot and collected things. The Morgan silver, 1898. A key. The origin of this key are unknown. A beautiful inscribed Victorian gold ring with a ruby stone. And last but not least, a gold pocket watch for his service as a public architect in the Netherlands. There's an inscription inside in Dutch, which I can't read, because I would never learn Dutch. Well, a couple of rude words, but we won't go into that. Now, what about these objects? We have a book, a coin, a key, a ring, and a watch. I wonder, Jane, you're concentrating. You're really looking at those, aren't you? You're fascinated with those, aren't you? You can stay where you are, all right? And they're in a particular order now. I'd like you to think about those for a moment and tell me how you'd like to order them in the following way. Your most favorite on this side, your least favorite on that side, a kind of rank ordering, if you will, of those 5 objects.
The ring on that side.
So number 1 is the ring.
And switch the book to the opposite side.
To the opposite side.
And then the dollar next to the ring.
Okay.
Then the watch.
Then the watch.
And then the key.
And then the key. Fantastic. Thank you. You're satisfied with that ordering?
Yes.
Now, what's very interesting in the letter to my father from my grandfather, he says that these objects are from the family, and of course they are what they are, but they also have larger meaning, which transcends the generations and transcends time, Jane, because you were attracted to these as I put them on the table. And the ordering is very interesting. But let me explain just a little bit of the concept here. He said that the ring actually symbolizes commitment. The coin, material wealth. The watch, time, order, and progress. And if you're a Marxist, class relations, because the shop owner had to keep the workers working on time. The key, mystery, things that are locked away, secrets, boxes, diaries. And finally, the book is Shakespeare's The Tempest. Knowledge, power, and magic. Your least favorite object. Fantastic. So we have this really interesting revelation, perhaps. I don't know how that sits with you, Jane, because you commitment's very important. And these are sort of subconsciously revealed orderings here. Material wealth, commitment and wealth. I'm not going to ask your marital status. I myself am married, so not interested. That's no offense. The watch, right? About time, order, and progress. Are you an orderly person?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Third preference. Good. Secrets. Ooh, your secrets are quite far down. So maybe an open person. Not an open book person, but an open person. Not too many secrets, etc. And finally, the power and the magic and the knowledge is maybe further down the road for you. Yeah? How does that feel?
Yeah, okay, yes.
All right. Well, let's try a little something, because all of you in the room have had an opportunity to also think about these objects, okay? And I'm going to hand a bag out. You're just so fascinated with this. So what is your name?
Annie.
Annie. I'm going to give you a bag, okay? And in a moment, a set of instructions. So Annie, you have some thoughts about the objects. I don't want to prejudge what's going on there. What is your name?
Collie.
Collie?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a bag. Pav, could you hand that back? That's excellent. And a third bag. Let's see. You, sir. Why not? The three in the back row.
Yep.
Is that okay? And what is your name?
Ross.
Ross. Great. So we have Annie. Say your name again.
Collie.
Goli.
Yeah.
Where's that from?
Persia.
Persia. Woo, fantastic. Okay, so Annie, Goli, and Ross. Excellent. Objects are here. I'm going to stand just here and look at these two. It's Emily and Anthony. I'm going to look at those two with my eyes shut. They're going to verify I can't see a thing. Each of you will come up, Annie and Goli, and then Russ. Pick an object, put it in the bag, pull the drawstring, and then leave the bag on the little purple mat. Make sense? Excellent. Annie, you may begin. I don't want to step on your toes. If you don't step on mine. That's excellent. So Annie's first, then Goli, and then Russ. Pick an object, place it in the bag, pull the drawstring, and then leave the bag on the table. And then Annie, when you're finished, go back to your seat, equally with Goli and with Russ. And who are we on now? Goli, great, okay. And Russ, are you sort of waiting in the wings?
I am.
Excellent. You may go now. Thought they might go a little, sort of in a train, but it's okay. Following instructions very explicitly, that's fine. Okay. So Annie's gone, Goli's gone, and Russ is now going. Have they left the bags on the table? Yes? Excellent. Good. You follow instructions exceedingly well. Russ, are you done?
Yeah.
Excellent. He's back. Okay. Good. Now, the interesting thing is that you were all attracted to different objects here. I'm going to place these two and put them away. So we have 3 objects left. Very interesting. I'm going to open the bags and take out the objects. There's a key. And finally, the book. We have knowledge, power, and magic. Secrets, commitment. I've not met you before. We've only met today. In fact, so recently that I keep forgetting your name, Russ, but I've got it now. Goli, we haven't met before. Annie, haven't met before. Knowledge, power, and magic. Correct? You chose the book. Fantastic. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. That leaves commitment and secrets. Commitment and secrets. Really interesting. Counterintuitive, perhaps, looking at you two. I'm not trying to discern anything from body language or physical appearance or, ooh, she's looking away. That tells me something, I believe. I'm going to go for Goli, secrets, and Russ, commitment.
Correct.
Thank you very much. So, we have a key and we have a ring. My final question. In the back, you have a purple scarf on. What is your name?
Larissa.
Larissa. You can stay where you are, Larissa. It's a very simple gut instinct judgment again. My left hand, my right hand. Say the first thing that comes in your mind, left or right.
Should I do left or right?
Say left or right as soon as it pops into your mind.
Right.
You're going to say right. Excellent. The remaining object is the ring. Now this is extraordinary. I'm going to place the ring just here and return to our letter. The letter from my grandfather says, of all the objects, no matter where you find yourself, the ring has the most power, which will inevitably draw the attention with whomever you share these objects. Emily's thinking he just said that. That's not actually in the letter. You will see it's in the letter and it's circled with a red pen. Am I correct?
You have.
Thank you very much. Well, this is wonderful. It's going swimmingly, I must say. And I thought what would be interesting is that you've been listening to all this stuff about philosophy and history, etc. But all of that is predicated on us understanding one another and what we say to one another. But how confident are we in the use of our language? I can tell you when I first came here, I lost confidence in my use of the English language. I had all sorts of bizarre things. I don't know about you guys, but when I first got here, I was like, what are they saying to me? I thought, I'm an American, I speak English, I'll be fine. And then I saw a sign that said, no fly tipping. I thought, well, in America, we tip cows, but flies? Doesn't make sense to me, you know? Temporary skip higher. I had to deconstruct that for a minute. What's a skip? Don't know. Turns out in America, it's called a dumpster, right? Makes no sense to you guys, but it does to me, right? And then hire means to rent. And I thought, well, if you're going to rent it, it's going to be temporary anyway. The British are so redundant. But, you know, car boot sale didn't make sense. You're a long time dead, cheap at half the price. I don't know. It was all this crazy stuff, right? Didn't make any sense. Kind of reverse logic. But my favorite ever. So I got to a petrol station here, and I filled up my car, and I went in to pay. And while I was paying, a horde of motorcycles come onto the forecourt. And I look at the person behind the till, and I say to her, oh, I said, looks like you're being invaded. And she says, good to see him out, though, innit, bikes? What? What? Good to see them out, though, isn't it, comma, bikes. Extraordinary construction. So I went home that night and I said, oh, this is really good, this is, lasagna. And I got a swift slapping from my wife. So language, really interesting. And there's a philosopher that was worried about language. His name was Ludwig Wittgenstein. And his problem with language is that how stable is language? How stable are the words that we use and the meanings we think they have? And he has a great thought experiment in one of his works. It's called Wittgenstein's Beetle. He proposes, as a thought experiment, there's a small island of people, and when anyone is born on the island, they're given a small box with a beetle inside. And they are told, you have a beetle in your box. Don't show your beetle to anyone else. Nurture the beetle for your entire life, and it will bring you good luck. But whatever you do, don't look at anyone else's beetle. Now, can you imagine this community of human beings carrying little boxes around which look remarkably like this? And they have a beetle inside. The problem is they could spend their entire lives believing that there was a beetle inside their box, when in fact it could have been something entirely different. And until they looked in each other's boxes, there was no way they could know what a beetle was. This idea of having a private language was impossible. That language itself is social. We require other people to tell us what things mean and confirm the meanings that we understand and share. As I pull back the table, now you're thinking, is it a table? Is he standing? Is he on the floor? What happens if he drops the ball? Now, imagine if we had a beetle in each one of these boxes. I have to prevail upon your good nature again, and I need 4 volunteers. All right, just simple volunteers. Perhaps just again, if just one, Larissa, if you could come, that'd be great. Annie, if you could come, and perhaps if you could come again, sir, that would be great. Just up here. This is fun, really fun. You'll see I have 4 boxes laid out in front of you. I shall stand here. I wonder, Annie, if you could just mix the boxes first. Just change their ordering. I shall close my eyes. You can mix them up. change their order, fantastic. And when you've done so, just let me know that you feel that they are sufficiently shuffled. Whatever you do, don't look in the box. It's a little bit scary. Great, fantastic. You may now select a box. And the next person, who's in line next?
Larissa.
Larissa, if you could select a box.
Yes.
And who's next?
Moritz.
Moritz, if you could select one. And then is it who's next? Gully, is it? Or I'm sorry, Yunzi again. Yes, good. You may select the final box. Now, here's the instruction. If you stand in a row here, facing your lovely audience, turn the box so the hasp is towards your chest, because in a moment you're going to open your box and look inside, but you're not going to look inside anyone's box next to you. This is a private matter between you and your box. Now, before you open your boxes, I'm just going to open my eyes and turn around because I want to make sure everybody's kind of standing. Fantastic. Hold your box just like that on one hand. That's it. And then you can open the hasp and look. Now, when I count to 3, you may open your box. You may open it slowly. You may open it quickly. But at the count of 3, you must open your box, look inside, and then shut the box. And then put the hasp back. Are we ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Open your box. Have a look. Okay? And shut your boxes, and then do the hasp, and hold the box flat on the hand as I showed you before. Are the boxes shut? Okay. Interesting. There we go. Boxes are shut. Hold it on your hand just like that. Let your hand drop. Fantastic. Now, very interesting. Wittgenstein's Beetle. You all may confirm at this stage, did you see a beetle?
Yes.
Excellent. Larissa, you saw a beetle,
Yes.
and in your box is indeed a beetle. Am I right? A beetle, ladies and gentlemen. So it didn't jump out. You weren't too scared, and there it was. Wonderful. You have a beetle in your box as well, don't you? But it's a slightly different one. It's a German beetle. It's a special German beetle. What kind of beetle is in your box?
Can I say it?
You may.
It's a car.
A VW beetle. Excellent. A VW beetle. You see what I'm getting at here? Now I have 2 people left. Very interesting. Okay? Because you have a beetle, you said you had a beetle, and you said you had a beetle. On the far end, a beetle. Yes, it is a beetle, isn't it? It's a person. And you, a word. Correct?
Yes.
John Lennon.
Yes.
He was a beetle. And finally, the word a beetle. Thank you very much. Thanks. That's great. Cheers. Well, thank you so much for that active participation. I have a final thing to share with you before we take a small interval. And that is something that goes right back to my childhood. You might have seen this young man here. A little unsettling, I agree. But he's been watching you. He's taking notes inside his mind. And these fine people over here. I wonder, Luis, if you might help me, please. If you just come here and stand behind the table. Marvelous. These are my childhood puppets. All right? You laugh, Alejandra. You laugh. But I grew up with these puppets. They were sent over from the United States to be with me, and I'm absolutely delighted that they've come and joined me. Underneath each of these puppets is a small metal hook. You see that, Louise? Great. And interestingly, inside this box is something I require, because when I was a child, I desperately wanted my puppets to come to life. And so I crafted a small heart out of paper and cloth. Sewed it myself badly. But wanted to give life to these puppets. Luis, today you shall replicate that exercise I'd like you to lift one of the puppets and put the heart on it, but you're going to do that without my knowledge. Does that make sense? So you take the heart, lift the puppet. I shall stand here once again, Emily and Anthony and Alejandra, skeptics as they are, going to make sure that my eyes are firmly shut as Luis lifts the puppet and hangs a heart on the hook. And when he's done so, he should tell me audibly that he has done so. Sometimes people, yes, good, very good, thank you. Wonderful. Luis, you may take a seat. His job is done. Now, are the puppets in sort of absolutely look the same as they did before he put the heart under? Yes? Okay, great. That's important for this demonstration. Now, what's really interesting is even though my eyes were closed, his eyes were open. No. He listens. He watches. And now he's going to share with me which puppet has been given life. And perhaps a little insight into why. Amazing. You're probably wondering who these puppets are, however. So before I finish, I'm going to just put a name. This is actually Jake. This is Noah. This is Patrick. It's the preacher. And this is Mr. Zhang. So, Jake and Noah were sort of early childhood puppets, whereas Patrick, I got a little bit later on. The preacher, of course, you don't want to give a very small child a preacher. That could be frightening. And Mr. Zhang was a great acquisition a little bit later on. But Hugo's told me something really interesting. He said that Luis is a little bit nervous about authority, particularly state authority. The policeman was not of any interest to you. He also said, not so sure about the religious thing either. Preacher, not interesting. Now, you and Mr. Zhang share a certain feature, but definitely not very interesting. Now, it leaves Noah and Jake. The two first puppets I had, a young boy wearing a wool hat and a train engineer. That leaves me with a very interesting choice. Of course, Hugo was watching. He said, not sure about the wool hat. There's something about that wool hat that attracted you, Luis, to the heart, to give life to young Noah. Whereas the train, you're not a train guy, are you? No. So Hugo has confirmed that actually Noah was the one who you were most attracted to. And Luis, I thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to invite you to retire to the next room, and we'll come back for part 2. Thank you.